Part of the speaker training was to speak, you would get on stage and speak for 1 minute. You could say anything you wanted in that 60-second speech, but you could only speak for 60 seconds. I got on stage and they had a countdown timer. And I got on that stage and I took a deep breath.
Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
And I started with a quote. I said, Eleanor Roosevelt said, "I am who I am today
because of choices that we made yesterday."
And 13 years ago, I made a decision. My name is Ria Story. I'm a motivational speaker and author. I share my testimony of overcoming my past. I have a brother who's younger than I am. He's a year younger than I am. And a normal day for us would often look like, he would get up and go to work with Dad, and Mom and I would stay home, and there were chores to complete on the farm. There were animals to take care of and things that needed to be done. I took a very active role in the household from a young age. My mom was not always able to just cope with daily chores and tasks and things like that. And perhaps that was, not a wise thing, because it really placed me in a role of playing the wife and mother. Sometimes we pray for an answer to prayer and it doesn't look like what we expect. And my answer to prayer was my now husband, Mac Story. And it didn't take long before he realized something wasn't right in my situation. One day he just asked me, and he was the first person to ever ask.
To get her to confide in me, all I really had to do was ask her. But you could imagine, I forget now, it was a couple of months, 2 to 3 months into our relationship, and I was picking up on all these. Somehow I got a gift for reading people. And then at the same time, it's very hard to ask that question. Even if it was true, she might say it was not happening. So I had to risk a lot of our relationship, and that was okay, because of what I really wanted was what was best for her. And I had talked to my uncle, who's in the police department, my mom, my aunt, who's a psychologist, and everyone but my mom basically told me, get as far away from this as you can.
My father started sexually abusing me when I was 12 years old. It started out as just conversations of how daddies and daughters should be close to one another, and how God had given me to him to protect and so he could be sure that I was safe and taken care of. And from there, it really progressed. He took my clothes off and he told me the whole time what a perfect daughter I was, that God had given me to him as an answer to his solution, to his problem. And religion was sometimes used as a way to control me, and saying that, if God has provided me as an answer to my father being unfaithful to my mother, then it has to be right. And it progressed as I got older, and it continued to get deeper and darker. I was to the point of considering taking my own life, because I couldn't see that I would ever get out. We were very isolated and very controlled, even growing up. And at 19, I could see no way to get out. Every time I tried to leave, Dad would find me and come get me and persuade me or talk me into coming back, because he would tell me he was going to hell if I turned him in. He told me no one would understand. He was right. I don't understand. After I realized that here was someone who cared about me. And cared about me for me, not for what he could get from me or what I could do for him. And he told me, he said, you don't have to stay here, but you're not going home. And that was a relief, because for the first time I had someone on my side who would fight for me.
Reason that I didn't walk away is I knew she had to have somebody to help her.
So you've always really wanted to defend the underdog.
We tell people today, God used me to save her, but He used her to save me.
In the early days after I left home, I really felt for me the best thing was to move forward, and the only way I knew to survive and to just move forward was to lock it up and pretend it never happened. I didn't want to talk about it even with Mac, but that's not true healing. It was only when I was ready to share my story and talk about it that I realized, we all have pain and scars from the past, but those scars make us stronger. In 2013, I heard Les Brown speak. And Les Brown is a very popular motivational speaker, and he said to a room full of people, he said, you have a story to tell, and someone needs to hear your story, and only you can help that person. I don't want to tell my story. I'd spent 13 years trying to just forget it and pretend it never happened. We had the opportunity to go back. My husband, Mac, and I went back for a speaker training. And part of the speaker training was to speak. You would get on stage and speak for 1 minute. You could say anything you wanted in that 60-second speech, but you could only speak for 60 seconds. And the morning of the contest came down to it, and I said, I can't do this. I was like, God, I can't do this. And it's almost the immediate answer that came back that says you can do it. You don't have to do it alone. For me, after I did the 60-second speaker training contest where I shared my 1-minute speech and I said the past wasn't going to hold me back, and in saying so, I proved it. And it didn't matter if I won the contest or not. When I sat down, I'd won a much greater victory in me. Because for me, I find courage and I find my why in saying, God doesn't cause the pain in our lives, but He can use it. And I find courage when I share my story because I know I can help someone else. Someone who might be fighting some of the same battles that I fought, and just saying it doesn't matter what happens to us in life. What matters is who we become because of it. We all have pain. It's what will we do about it? Since I started sharing my story in 2013, the response has been incredibly overwhelming. Every time I speak, regardless of the size of the group or what environment it's in, someone comes up to me and has a story of me too. I was at a conference one time and there were hundreds of people there who heard my story, and this lady came up to me and she said, you know what, I was raped over 20 years ago and I got pregnant and no one believed me and my family disowned me and I had to move away. And she said, I've lived with that and my son's now 17, 18 years old and I've lived with that my whole life. She said, but now I realize that I can let that go. You've set me free. And to me that's very humbling because it's not really my story, it's God's story told through my life. But that's why I do what I do, because every time I can give someone else hope or show someone else a little bit of the light that I've seen, that makes everything worth it. So it wasn't enough to just speak and share my story from the stage. I wrote a couple of books to share my testimony because I realized there are people who won't ever hear me speak. But if I can give just one person hope, it makes it worth it.
Restoring me.
I really identify with Natalie Grant's Clean. To me, that is a beautiful song. When you really stop and listen to the lyrics, there's a special meaning there.
You wash me in mercy. I am clean. There's nothing too dirty that you can't make worthy. You wash me in mercy.
I would say that, in Jesus we are all clean. That's what gives us the hope and the ability to say it doesn't matter what I've been through or what I'm going through, because through Jesus we are clean.
Are purified. I am clean. Oh yeah. Washed in
I got on that stage and I took a deep breath and I said,
Eleanor Roosevelt said, "We are who we are today because of choices that we made yesterday."
and 13 years ago I made a decision that more than 7 years of sexual and physical abuse wasn't going to hold me back.
I was 19 when I left home.
And I didn't have a job, I didn't have a car, I didn't have any money. But I left home and I didn't look back, because I made a decision. It's not going to hold me back. I am who I am today because of the choices that I made yesterday.
But who you are tomorrow is based on the choices that you make today.
Choose your attitude wisely. My name is Ria, and that's how I found joy in my story.